Hey, Betty. Where's your sister? Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Agudath Israel Etz Ahayem Synagogue here in Montgomery, Alabama. I am Rabbi Scott Kramer. It's nice to see so many online and in person. So it's very, very nice. Hope everyone had a great week. And we are praying out of Siddur Lev Shalem. And we begin our service page 5 with Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hashar, Malachei Elyon, Ni Melech Malchei Hamlakim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We continue page 11 with Psalm 95. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena ladonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena ladonai. Naria, naria, letzor yishenu, nekad mafana betoda. Naria, naria, letzor yishenu, Bizmirot naria lo, alechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena ladonai, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena ladonai. Naria, naria, letzor yishenu, nekad mafana betoda. Naria, naria, letzor yishenu, bizmirot naria alone. We continue in English. Let us go and sing to Adonai. Let us trumpet praise to our protector, filled with thanks. Let us greet God, raising our voice in song. Come then, let us bow and kneel. Let us bend our knees in the presence of Adonai who formed us. If only you would listen today to God's voice, not become hard-hearted, like the people at Merivah, like the time at Massah, in the desert when your ancestors tried me and tested me, though they had seen what I had wrought. 40 shana kut bedor va'omar am toeh levavhem vehem lo yod drachai asher nishpati v'api im yivon el menuchati. Page 13. Shiru ladonai shir chadash, shiru ladonai kol haaretz, shiru ladonai baruch shemo, basru miyom liyom yeshuato, sapru vagoyim gevodo, bechol ha'amim nifliotov, ki gadol Adonai. Oh, mehulal miyod, no rao, al ko Elohim, lai, ki ko Elohe, ha'amim elilim, v'adonai shamayim mahasap, had v'hadar lefanav, oz v'tiferet b'mikdasho, avu ladonai, mishpachot amim, avu ladonai, kavod v'oz, avu ladonai, kevod shemo, seu mincha, Ovahu lechatzrod of lai ishtachavu ladonai behadrat kodesh chilu mipanav kol haaretz imrum vagoyim Adonai malach avtikom tevel balatimot yadinahim b'mei sharim yismechu hashamayim v'tagil haaretz Ayiram hayam umelo Yalo sadai Vechol asher bo lai Az yiranenu kolat seyar Lifnei Adonai kiva lishpot haaretz yishpot tevel betzedek v'yamin be'emunato yalai lai yai lai We continue, page 15, Psalm 97. Emily, would you lead us, please? Clouds and Or Zarula Tzadik Ulishalev Simcha Simchu Tzadikim Badunai Vaudu Lezecher Kadisho. Page 17, Psalm 98. Mizmor Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash Ki Niflaot Asa Hoshia Lo Yemino Uz Roa Kocho Adia Adonai Yeshuato Le'ena Goyim Gilad Tzid Kato Zachar Chastav Emunato Levei Yisrael, Rocholav Se'aretz, Et Yeshuat Eloheinu, Oriu Ladonai Kol Haaretz, Bitzchum Veranenu Vizameru, Zamru Ladonai Bechinar, Bechinar V'kol Zimera, Bechatzot Rod V'kol Shofar, Oriu Lifnei HaMelech Adonai, Yiramayam Maloho, Tevel V'yoshveva, Neharot Yimchaucha, Yachad Harim Yiranenu, Lifnei Adonai Kiva, Lishbot Haaretz, Yishbot Tevel B'tzedek, Ve'yamim Be'meisharim, Yalai lalai lalai lalai, Yalai lalai lalai, Yalai lalai lalai lalai, Yalai lalai lalai lalai, Yalai lalai lalai, Yalai lalai lalai, We continue page 19 with Psalm 99. Adonai reigns, nations tremble. The one enthroned amidst the cherubim makes the world quake. A sovereign's strength lies in the love of justice, and you forge the paths of truth, judging Jacob righteously and justly. Moses and Aaron among God's priests, and Samuel among those who called upon the divine name, called to you, and you answered them. You spoke to them from amidst the cloud. You kept their covenant and the law you gave them. You answered them, Adonai our God. You were a forgiving God to them, even as you punished them for their transgressions. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lahar kadosho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. We rise, page 21 for Psalm 29. Mizmor leDavid, Havu ladonai b'nei Elim, Havu ladonai kavod vos, Havu ladonai kavod shemo, Ishtachavu ladonai behadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, Hela kavod hirim Adonai omayim rabim, Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai be'adar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et al zehalvanon, Vayarkidem kemhoegel, Lebanon v'Sirion kemo vendrehim, Kol Adonai chotzev lavotesh, Kol Adonai Yachil Midbar, Yachil Adonai Midbar Kadesh, Kol Adonai Yecholel Ayalo, Vayechesop Nyarot, Uvehechalo Kulo Merkavod, Adonai Lamabul Yah, Shevadonai Melech Leolam, Adonai oz li'amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. You may be seated. We continue page 23. Lecha dodi lekrat kala penei Shabbat nikabela, Lecha dodi lekrat Kala penei Shabbat nikabela, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmi'anu elam yuchad, Adonai echad u'shamo echad l'shem u'tiferet v'litila lecha dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila likrat Shabbat lechu v'nilcha ki mikora beracha merosh mikedem nesucha Sov ma'aseh b'machshvat chila lecha dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila mikdash melech ir melucha kumitzei mitocha hafecha ravlach shevet b'yemek habacha V'hu yachamohu alaychem lalecha dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila hitnarim me'afar kumi livzei vigdei tifartecha mi ayad ben yishai Beit alachmi karva el nafshi geyala lecha dodi likrat Kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila hitoreri kiva ore kumi uri shir daberi kevod Adonai alayich nigla lecha dodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nikabila lecha dodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nikabila lo tevoshi v'lo tikami ma tishtochachi u'ma tehemi bach yechasu ani ayami v'nivneta ir altila lecha dodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nikabila hayulem shisa shoho esayich v'rachaku kom mivalayich yasis alayich Elohayich kimcha eschatan al kala lecha dodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nikabila yamin usmo tifroti v'et Adonai taritzi Ayadish ben parti v'nismecha v'nagila lecha dodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nikabila. We rise as we turn to the last stanza of L'chodidi, page 25, as we face towards the west to greet the Shabbat bride. Bo'i v'shalom ateret bala gam besimcha uvetzala toch emunei am segula bo'i chala lecha dodi likrat kala P'nei Shabbat nikabila. You may be seated. We continue page 27 with Psalm 92. Betty, would you lead us, please, in English? Bevet Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenuvun heva deshenim verananim yeyu lehagid ki yashar Adonai tzuri v'lo avlatabo. We continue page 29 with Psalm 93. Adonai is sovereign, robed in splendor, girded in strength. The earth stands firm, not to be dislodged. From earliest time you are enthroned, you are eternal. In your house, beautiful in its holiness, your testimonies endure, Adonai, for all time. Again, thank you, and Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening, both those in person and those online. So, I'm sure that everyone has been to a small weekday service or even sometimes a evening service, whether to remember a Kaddish or attend a Shiva, and you hear someone ask, do we have a minyan? Meaning, are there at least a minimum of 10 present for communal worship? So I know it's a little strange 3 years into the pandemic now that it's maybe unofficially over, that we still wonder whether we can count a minyan online and in person. And of course, the answer is, well, it depends, just like everything else. If we didn't count those online, we probably would never have an opportunity to say Kaddish for those that needed to say Kaddish. So we kind of made that decision a long time ago, but I still look forward to the day where I can say, do we have a minyan? After making that comment, the next moment is occasionally a bit strange. Someone, or more than one, looks around the group, points toward each of those presents and says, not one, not two, not three, and then ultimately announces, we have a minyan, or that we don't have a minyan. What is this not counting ceremony about? Why do we say not one, not two? The what is an incredibly old system, really a circumlocution, a way to avoid counting people. Old meaning thousands of years. Why would anyone think that we are not permitted to count people for a mitzvah? Frankly, we Jews do a lot of counting. Does this mean that counting per se in Jewish tradition is bad, is a sin? No. Think about Hanukkah. We count 8 nights. A Brit Milah is on the 8th day after birth. A bar bat mitzvah is counted for an age 12 or 13, respectively. We are now concluding a count of 49 days of the Omer from Passover to Shavuot, which is next Thursday night. Counting days, weeks, months, even years is not punished. We Jews have been counting everything throughout our history. Welcome to this week's Torah portion, Bamidbar, we begin a new book of the Torah, the book of Numbers, which begins, then the book begins with a census, divinely ordered, no less, of all of the children of Israel on their way out of Egypt. The second, in fact, since the Exodus. We read this Shabbat, Moses is told, take a census of the whole Israelite community by the clans of its ancestral houses, listing the names, every male, head by head. So what is the reason for not one, not two, etc.? Should our tradition really have any uneasiness or even anxiety, even when God orders both? Yes, said our rabbinic midrashim based on a biblical precedent. We read from the Torah only several months ago that Moses was directed, when you take a census of the Israelite people, he is then instructed how to conduct the census in detail. Each shall pay the Lord a ransom for himself on being counted, in order that no harm should come to them. What is the difference between the two census procedures? In the first mandate, they are told to collect a half shekel per person. They are to count the total half shekels gathered. In this indirect method, the number of Israelites is learned. But specifically in this way, we are also ransoming our souls. We prevent any harm to any individual or the entire group. One would think that to count otherwise is to perhaps tempt fate and somehow sin by directly counting people. So we count not one, not two, not three, to avoid a plague. Did it ever happen? Yes, in fact, the Bible records that a census which resulted in a plague, interpreted by our sages as a punishment. After Israel is established as a nation with a king, one who conducted a census at God's direction, that tally did go terribly wrong. King David is ordered to a census of Israel in 2 Samuel chapter 24, and this same directive is repeated again in the Bible in 1 Chronicles chapter 21. Both narratives are described by our sages as a sin. They deservedly resulted in a plague in which 70,000 people died. Perhaps what made it a sin was how King David took his census, suggested our sages. David failed to follow the protocol of not counting, of collecting coins to count, and the subsequent deaths were a divine punishment. Nevertheless, this returns us to our Torah portion this Shabbat and raises new questions. Why doesn't our portion this Shabbat repeat the protocol for taking a census? Why not also require a ransom for each soul? Why is there no parallel warning of a danger of Negev or a plague? What is the difference between these instructions for conducting a census and a population survey is needed? For after all, every administration of a country needs to know for how many citizens is the leadership to provide. What do the scholars interpret those deaths resulting from King David's census that since then to the present have occasioned anxiety, or is it just that many consider a superstition? Rashi writes that counting Israelites individually triggers the evil eye and brings a plague consistent with the Talmudic sage Rabbi Eliezer. Whoever counts Israel violates a negative precept. Therefore, they must conduct every census using objects such as half shekels and then count the objects. His grandson, Rashi's grandson, the Rashbam, counters with a practical rationale. This was a military determination to ascertain the number of fighting men and their organization for forthcoming battles. Nachmanides, the Ramban, agrees with this last suggestion that he cannot just depend upon divine miracles, miraculous victories, a wise balance between trust in God and human commitment. And he also cites contemporaries that human beings are not objects of possessions to be inventoried. Every soldier is a person who has an importance and a value deserving of God's love and our respect. War is terrible, and inevitably there will be they will be confronting future battles. The death or injuries to any one soldier is a tragedy, and while his military role might be restored numerically, as a human being, he cannot be replaced. Every soldier is or could be a husband, son, father, grandfather, uncle, and cousin, part of a larger family, and even is vital to Klal Yisrael, the people of Israel. When we ask aloud, is there a minyan? And we count those present. Let's keep these values in mind as we count people. Let's also be a people on whom the community can count. Shabbat Shalom. We'll now continue with Ma'ariv. Page 39a, we rise for the Baruch Hu, the call to worship. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamavorach. Baruch Adonai Varach Lilam Voed. You may be seated. Baruch et Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space, whose word brings the evening dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's division, whose will sets the succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky, who creates day and night, who rolls light before darkness and darkness from light, who makes day pass into night, who distinguishes day from night. Adonai Tzvaot is your name, living and ever-present God. May your rule be with us forever and ever. Baruch Atah Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk. U'mahavir yom u'mevi laila, mavdil ben yom u'vein laila, Adonai Tzvaot Shemo. El Chai v'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Alein L'Olam V'Oed Baruch Atah Adonai Hamariv Aravim. Page 40. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amchavta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shachveinu v'kumeinu nasiach bechukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha uv'mitzvotecha le'olam v'ohed. Ki em chayenu v'orech yameinu ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, ויראתך תשים ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinanatam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shachpecha v'kumecha ukshartam liot al yadecha v'hayu latotafot b'einecha וכתבתם מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך והיה אם שמות תשמעו אל מצוותיי. ושמתם את דבר אלה לבבכם ועל נפשכם קשרתם להיות על ידיכם והיו לטוטפות בין עיניכם למען ירבו ימיכם וימי בניכם כימי השם הארץ. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת להם ויעשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורתם ונתנו על ציצית הכנף בתיל תכלת. והיה לכם לציצית וראיתם אותו וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם ולא תטור אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם. Page 43a. This is our enduring affirmation binding on us that Adonai is our God and there is none other, and we, Israel, are God's people. God is our sovereign, redeeming us from earthly rulers, delivering us from the hand of all tyrants, bringing judgment upon our oppressors and just retribution upon all our mortal enemies, performing wonders beyond understanding and marvels beyond all reckoning. God places us among the living, not allowing our steps to falter, and leads us past the false altars of our enemies, exalting us above all those who hate us. Adonai avenged us with miracles before Pharaoh, offered signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. God brought Israel from its midst to lasting freedom and led them through the divided waters of the Sea of Reeds. As their pursuers and enemies drowned in the depths, God's children beheld the power of the divine. They praised and acknowledged God's name. Page 44. U'malchuta b'ratzon kibaleha Moshe u'Miriam u'vnei Yisrael chaneshira b'simcha rabba v'yameru chulam mi chamocha Ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedor ba'kodesh norati lot o seifele malchutecha ruvenecha bo kiyam lifnei Moshe zeli anu v'yameru Adonai imloch leolam voed. V'nehemar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov, u'golod mirachzak mimenu, baruch et Adonai, Ka'al Yisrael. Page 45. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shem. Ushmotzeitenu vein l'chaim ushlamir taviad olam ufrosalenu sukat shlomecha baruch et Adonai haboret sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. We rise, page 46. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledoratam barit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledoratam barit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'doratam barit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim v'et ha'aretz v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledoratam barit olam. Uvayom hashvi shavat vayinafa shavat vayinafa shavat vayinafash v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledoratam barit olam. We continue with the silent Amidah for Friday night, pages 47 through 52. continue, page 56. Remain standing as the ark is open for Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol latek gdula l'yotzer b'reshit shalo asanu k'goyei haratzot v'lo samanu k'mishmachot adama shalo sam chelkeinu kahem v'goreleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim Melech Malchei Hamlachim Makadosh Baruch Hu Shehun Notei Shamayim V'Yosed Haaretz U'Moshe V'Yikara B'Shamayim Imal U'Shchinatu Zo B'Gavei Meromim U'Eloheinu Einod Emed Malkeinu Evazulato Kakatu b'Torato v'yadat hayom v'ashivota elevavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim imal v'yal haaretz mitachat einod al kein Gagadu b'toretech Adonai loch le'lam vo'ed v'nemar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz bayom mahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo Echad. You may be seated. Before we say Mourner's Kaddish, we will continue our counting from the second day of Passover through the next holiday of Shavuot as we count the Omer. Bottom page 63, we say the bracha together. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam Asher Kedishanu B'Mitzvotav V'Tzivanu Al Sfirat HaOmer. I'm sorry. Here we go. Hayom Arba'av Arba'im Yom Shehem Shisha Shvuot Ushnei Yamim LaOmer. Today is 44 days, 6 weeks and 2 days of the counting of the Omer. This week we will observe yahrzeits for Meyer Halben, Jacob Leibovitz, Henrietta Mascarenas, Annie Werfel, Sigmund Halben, Ruth Piha, Fanny S. Schofman, Revko Bonfeld, Samuel Lee Kramer, Esther Mendel, Jake Siegel, Jeanette Kapoya, Levi Ben Delfino, Margaret Rothschild Kling, Pauline M. Davidson, Anthony Moscow Jr., Clara Spiegler, Allegra Cohen, Annie Smith, and Elizabeth Turner. Those observing yahrzeit and those who mourn, please rise and join me on page 58 for the Kaddish Tone, the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabba b'yomad divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael Ba'agalav izman karivim aru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mivarach le'lam ulmel maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitchomam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalo. Shmei d'kudisha barichu. Le'lam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata. Da miran b'yoma v'yimaru amen. Yehi Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya V'Chaim Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Mahu Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Mramav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Mahu Amen. You may be seated. Thank you all for joining me this evening. Thank you for organizing, getting close to a minyan. This is really great. I hope we can continue this and get to the point where we can say, yes, we have a minyan, and a minyan inside the building. Services will continue tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. And please join us tomorrow evening as the Alabama Community Virtual Havdalah meets via Zoom as we celebrate the end of Shabbat. With that, and the next holiday of Shavuot begins next Thursday evening. We will be inviting our regular Havdalah group to join us online. It will be via Zoom. We also invite you to join us Thursday evening at 6 p.m. I think that's the time that we've kind of decided. And we will be joined again online with our entire Havdalah group. The first night of Shavuot is celebrated with what we call Tikkun Leil Shavuot. It's a night of study. So I invite all of you to join me right here for the beginning of Shavuot. And again, we will welcome our Havdalah group with us via Zoom. As is traditional on Shavuot, we eat cheesecake. It's the dairy holiday. So I will be bringing in cheesecake for anybody that would like to join us in person. Sorry, we can't do that virtually. Doesn't taste the same. So please come and join us. It'll be a lot of fun. And with that, we will go ahead and conclude our service, page 211. Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'ed nasa v'chevso kol Azai melech shemo nikra, Azai melech shemo nikra, v'yacharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora, v'hu haya v'hu hoveh v'hu yiyeh b'tifara, v'hu yiyeh b'tifara. Ve'hu echad v'yein sheni l'ham shelo l'hachbira b'li reshit b'li tachlit v'lo ha'oz v'hamisra v'lo ha'oz v'hamisra ve'hu eli v'chai go'ali v'tzur chevli b'yetz hara ve'hu nisi umanosli minat kosi biyom mekra, minat kosi biyom mekra, biyado avkid ruchi biyet ishan v'ya'imra v'imruchi giviyati Adonai li v'lo ira, Adonai li v'lo ira. Shabbat shalom.